This is the 3.7 extension, percent of change. This is going to sound very familiar to you because you use this to calculate some things in our milk problem. However, there are some couple tricky things at the end and how you would use it in a word problem, so you should take a look at that. A percent of change indicates how much a quantity changes over a time period. Remember, with the milk, we were looking at this year's order versus last year's order. In percent of change, if the new amount is greater than the original amount, the percent of change is called the percent of increase. This is just a vocabulary term, but sometimes you'll hear that interchangeably with percent of change. They'll tell you it's a percent of increase, and when you hear that, you should know that the new amount is greater than the old amount. In that case, the percent of change is always positive. I usually just use the term percent of change, and if it's positive, I know the new amount is greater than the old amount, and if it's negative, I know the new amount is less than the old amount. When the new amount is less than the old amount, it's also called percent of decrease. Okay? So sometimes you'll see if people call it a percent of decrease, they won't put a negative sign in before it because they're telling you it's decreasing by that percent, so you're going to assume that the amount is negative. I think it's much clearer and easier to understand if you just use the term percent of change, and you can say it's a positive percent of change or a negative percent of change, depending on whether the new amount is greater than the old amount. So here's an example. If the original amount is 140 and the new amount is 189, you want to find the percent of change. So to do that, you always take the new minus the original and divide by the original. So in this case, we'll have 189 divided by 140. I'm sorry, 189 minus 140, and then divide that by 140. That's 49 divided by 140. That's 0.35. Now remember, 0.35 means 35%, and in this case, because your answer is positive, it's a 35% increase. In example 2, however, your new amount is less than your original amount. But again, you subtract new minus original divided by original. Just keep that form in your head. That's what you'll always use. In that case, you get a negative numerator, negative 10.5 divided by 70. So you get negative 15%. That means it's a decrease. You don't have to write decrease after the negative 15%, right? Because that's going to look like a double negative and people are going to think it's positive. So you either write negative 15% or you say it's a 15% decrease. Now if you know the original amount and the percent of change, you can calculate the new amount. So for a percent increase, you multiply the original amount by 100% plus the percent it increases. And for a percent decrease, you multiply the original amount by 100% minus the percent decrease. So here's a really simple example, okay? And you'll probably run into this all the time in real life. You want to find the sale price of a pair of jeans, okay? You see that the original price is $48, but there's a sign up that says discounted today 40%, okay? Since the sale price is a decrease or a discount, you take the original price times 100% minus 40%, which is 60%. So the sale price is 48 times 1 minus 0.4. That's 100% minus 40%. And that equals 48 times 0.6, or 28.8. Now, if you don't feel comfortable using that formula, you can always figure out what the discount of 40% of 48 is. You can multiply 40% times 48, get an amount, and then subtract it from $48 to get the sale price. That takes more steps, and that means you're more likely to make more mistakes. So it's simpler to use this formula. You should practice a little bit with some different problems. Just throw some different prices in and make it a discount. Of course, the price will never be increasing by 10% in a store, but you can think of cases where price would increase by 10%, right? I hope you can, okay? As the price of gold gets up, of course, the price of jewelry is going to increase, right? So you could say a necklace is originally $500, but the price of gold went up, so the price is going to increase by 12%. Then you should be able to multiply the $500 times the 100 plus the 12% to get the new price of gold. So make sure you're familiar with both those ways, both the increase and decrease, and that you can calculate those numbers.